Sorry, my bad. Can I put in your repeater right here?
Other students can't come in. I'll take care of it. Okay.
1 2 1 2.
Mic check 1. All right. I know somebody one time used to say, "My mic sounds nice." Check 1. See, everybody said it. "My mic sounds nice."
Check 2.
That's it. Get away. I'm gonna leave that to you, though.
That actually made me feel good.
All right. And before we get started, the only housekeeper rule is if you're sitting on this side, if you would go and exit so that you don't cross over in front of the camera. Y'all are good, just don't cross over on this side. But the exit is over there anyway, so you should be able to, all that good stuff. He hadn't given us the thumbs up. Oh, we good? Okay, I was waiting on you. Okay. I just been talking. Okay, let me get presidential. My apologies. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Clinton Presidential Colloquium Series. If you don't know me, and for those of you out there who may not know who I am Pamela Richardson Wilkes, 14th President of Clinton College, and it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be able to sit with the man of the hour, Mr. Richard Chub Rock Simpson. Thank you, and we are so excited for you to join us on campus today. For those of you who may not know what the series is about, it is a signature intellectual forum designed to elevate academic dialogue, cultural engagement, and thought leadership at Clinton College. This series brings together distinguished scholars, artists, innovators, and public leaders to engage the campus community in meaningful conversations around scholarship, creativity, leadership, and the pressing issues shaping society today. Rooted in the academic tradition of the colloquium, an intellectual gathering where experts present ideas and engage audiences in thoughtful discussion. The series should create a space where learning extends beyond the classroom. Each event features a special guest who shares professional insights, personal experiences, and creative work, followed by interactive dialogue with students, faculty, and community members. So ultimately, this series reflects the institution's mission to cultivate informed thinkers, creative leaders, and engaged citizens prepared to influence their communities and the world. So, I want to give you a brief biography of our speaker tonight, or our special guest. Richard Chub Rock Simpson, professionally known as Chub Rock, is an internationally recognized hip-hop artist, radio personality, and cultural commentator whose influence spans more than 3 decades. Born in Kingston, Jamaica, and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Chub emerged as one of the most distinguished voices in the late 1980s and early 1990s hip-hop, known for his commanding baritone voice, socially conscious lyrics, and charismatic storytelling. He first gained national attention with the release of his debut album, Chub Rock, featuring hitman Howie T in 1988. His breakthrough came in the early 1990s with the critically acclaimed album And the Winner Is, 1989, and later The One in 1991, which produced the hit single Treat 'Em Right. I'm sorry, my bad. The song became a defining hip-hop anthem of the era and helped establish Chub Rock as one of the most respected lyricists in the game. Beyond his recording career, Chubb Rock has remained an influential presence in media and public discourse. He has worked extensively in radio broadcasting, hosting nationally syndicated programs, and engaging audiences through discussions of music, culture, and social issues. His work bridges entertainment, entrepreneurship, and community engagement, offering insights into the evolution of hip-hop as both an art form and a cultural movement. Today, Chubb Rock continues to perform, speak, and mentor emerging artists while reflecting on the intersections of creativity, business, and cultural legacy. It's his career that exemplifies longevity, authenticity, and the enduring impact of hip-hop on a global and not just a local culture. So without further ado, I introduce to you Chubb Rock. So I'm going to let him go ahead and get started on the conversation.
It's an honor to be here. You know, it's interesting, and you could always stop me and ask questions. There's always been a question when it comes to hip hop, but we've always found that hip hop mirrors the state of young people, right? So when I was coming into hip hop, we were going through a certain time frame. It was like this whole pro fist up Africa, African medallions, A Different World was on television. We saw a black doctor and a black lawyer married in the Cosby Show. And it reflected in hip hop, right? Because we had Public Enemy, and we had Queen Latifah, and we had all of these records that were positive and knowledge of self records, Rakim, and it mimicked young people, because young people were going through that period of time of knowing themselves and trying to learn about their history and going to HBCUs and things of that nature. So it was beautiful. And then, you know, gangster rap came. And it changed the landscape, and maybe even changed the landscape for young people, right? Because now maybe young people were getting more involved in the streets and things of that nature and all of this. And it's interesting because my mom is in heaven now. But I remember one day she came to me, because she's the one that funded all of this. I was talking to my student, I call them my students now, my students back there, that my mom funded my music career. And she came to me one day because she seen just how hip hop seemed to have changed with all kinds of negativity and she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, do you believe when the history books finish writing about it, will hip hop have been a positive influence on black people? And I remember when she hit me with that question, I was like, can I get back to you about it? And so that's what it is. That's a very big question, right? So let's go back to the beginning. And it's going to be short. Hip hop is a culture created by young black people. And I need you to kind of remember that, because I read an article the other day when they said the pyramids weren't built by black people. So they can change history, right? So you should probably know what the history is. So this way you can't be told something else. But even though hip hop was made by young black people, it's an offshoot of music that already existed. Because you couldn't have hip hop without James Brown.
Correct.
Because we took his beats, we sampled them and his grooves and the bass lines that came out of his brilliance, and then we rapped on it. So at that point, you know that hip hop is James Brown. Hip hop is Parliament Funkadelic. Hip hop is Nile Rodgers and all these other brilliant musicians that made their songs their way, but hip hop people had a different interpolation of their music. And usually because hip hop people, young hip hop practitioners didn't have the money for instruments, definitely didn't have money for music lessons. So you kind of just went to your mother's record player and your father's record player and grabbed records and put them together, and then, you know, you kind of just did this mixture of it. But it felt good. It felt good to make this mixture, to take this piece, that piece, put them together, figure out the puzzle, and you come up with this whole new composition that you can rap about. Here's another debatable situation. Who invented hip hop? This is a debate that's going to go on forever. The godfather of hip hop that they have classified and said this is it is a man by the name of DJ Kool Herc. And because he created this thing that I'm pretty sure he didn't know what he was doing. He was taking records, funk records, and funk records always had a little break in the middle of the record that had no instruments on it, it's just drums. And he would mix them. And then he would have MCs rhyming on those breaks or trying to create the party. You know, throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care, you know, that kind of thing. And it became this party. And so that's why they dub him the godfather of hip hop. But here's the thing. He was born in Jamaica, right? He's a Jamaican born man, came to America like a little bit before high school. And then of course, raised here. So there's been a discussion many times that said hip hop was created by foundational black Americans, while your godfathers are Jamaican, right? So it becomes this debate, right? His parties were outside, plugged into a lamp post to be outside. That's a Caribbean paradigm, right? I grew up many years watching that as a boy, right? That's not an American paradigm, right? But it is what it is. You can debate, and people will debate this forever. It may not be a real answer to this, right? Then they had the debate of what role does Latinos play in hip hop? That came at one point. What role does the Latino culture play in hip hop? And it's pretty easy to answer it because they interjected dance into hip hop, break dancing. This is all foreign to all my young people here. Okay. Break dancing and pop locking, and they brought dance into it. Because here's the thing, hip hop has 5 elements. Can you name them? No? Okay. Somebody said yes? What's the 5 elements?
MCing,
Yes.
B-boy, or break,
Huh?
DJing,
DJing.
B-boy,
Okay.
And knowledge itself.
You did okay. You did okay. So definitely MCing, DJing, breakdancing, beatboxing, and b-boying. And b-boying is more what? It's fashion, right? Because hip hop affects everything. Fashion, sneaker culture, it affects all the situations. So you have these 5 elements of hip hop. And people are always trying to grab ownership of who came up with these elements, right? So you had, I was there one day when a debate happened, and it got pretty loud about Latinos' place in hip hop, and it's clear, breakdancing, and b-boying, lots of cultural fashions, right? But then you can't get rid of the Caribbean influence of it. Think about all the people in hip hop that are Caribbean. I'll give you a list. You got Kool Herc, of course. Myself, Biggie, Heavy D, Pepper from Salt and Pepper. My mic sounds nice.
Check 1.
Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Kodak Black, the Fugees, all of them, Wyclef Jean, all of them, right? Grand Poobah. I mean, and there's a ton more, right, that are from the Caribbean. And even if they're not from the Caribbean, their parents are from the Caribbean, right? So you can't just disregard the role of the Caribbean culture. And I don't even know why you want to separate it. Caribbean culture is, out of many, one people, right? So it's still one people, and we just need to realize the common denominator, that it's a culture created by us, right? So as long as we don't lose sight of that, you know, everybody trying to pick their piece, well, it's gonna always happen. Which is interesting, because another factor that gets disregarded in that same discussion is the role that women played in hip hop. In this party that Kool Herc created, his MC was a woman. And she was 13 years old. Her name was MC Sha Rock. She didn't get none of the credit that she's supposed to. There would be no Latifah without her. There wouldn't be an MC Light without her, or a Cardi B without her, or a Little Kim without her. She started it all. And then she went on to be in a group called the Funky 4 Plus One More, which was basically 4 men and her, right? She was the only woman. And they were the first group, rap group, to get on a national TV show, which was Saturday Night Live. In the 80s, I'm talking about like 84, 83, maybe. This side of the room is gonna know this song. Called Rapper's Delight. Oh, I forgot, we got some other, yeah, we got some. It's a big, it's probably, in my opinion, the biggest commercially successful record in hip hop, right? Was this particular record. I don't watch the Grammys anymore for a couple of reasons. And I don't want you to think I don't watch the Grammys because I lost 3 times. I lost the Hammer, Will Smith. No, I lost the Hammer twice and Will Smith once. But I was okay with that. But the reason why I don't watch the Grammys, so you have this record, Sugar Hill Gang record, Rapper's Delight, on Sugar Hill Records. Big record, big record. And then they had other records, Apache, and it's tremendous. But then there's all these other groups that came out of that label. Treacherous 3, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. You got all these records. What they don't tell you is that these young men wrote these records, but the records were produced by a woman, which is the owner of the label, Sylvia Robinson. She's the owner of the label. And she's the one who produced all of these records, The Message, all these incredible records. But you go to the Grammys, they gave a Lifetime Achievement Award to Quincy Jones. It's deserving. He produced Michael Jackson and everything else, totally deserving. You gave one to Dr. Dre and have an award named after him. Russell Simmons. But besides Quincy Jones, these men that represent the hip hop side of it came 8 years after her. 8 years after her. Their foundation is on her of what she built in the business. And even up to now, they still haven't come up with an award to just, I mean, she passed away, unfortunately, but just to show her brilliance. Like, hip hop is built on what she created, and they still do not mention her. That's why I don't watch the Grammy. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So we have those problems in the music business. This kind of sexism, right? That's terrible. While it's so incredible that hip hop now, the only person with hits is women. Ain't no man with no hits. It's only women. Glorilla, Cardi B, you know, that's it. Megan, there's that. They no men with no hits. But we've had these problems in hip hop, right? I mean, hip hop is not without its problems. So it has its sexism, which I've showed you. And then we've gone through other problems, violence and stuff like that. Have you guys ever asked yourself, when you read articles, why is this rapper who seems to be a millionaire going to jail? Oh, why is he involved in guns and shootings? But I heard he's making $1 million. Have you asked yourself that question? Yes. And try to figure out, what is the answer to this? And so there's a foundation of the, one of my students, where are they? Are they on this side or this side?
Kind of spread around. They split up.
My student here. What was the question you asked me in the room?
Yeah, I forgot.
Why is it so hard?
Yeah, why is it so hard to,
Why is it scary?
Yeah, why is it so scary
The
to
business
get-
of music
yeah,
was scary. Why is it so scary?
Why was it scary to what?
Why the business of music? You mentioned the business of music was scary. He asked, what makes it so scary?
So the business of music started with gangsters. There's no way around it. And the thought process was, the talent is in the hood, and we're going to grab some talent, give them some clothes, give them a couple of dollars, and let them show their talent. And here's the issue, okay? When records for black people first started, they were called race records. Right, so this is what it was. This is before, a man I had lunch with one time from Atlantic Records, Erdogan, named it Rhythm and Blues. He thought race records were too racial. It sounded too racial. So you have black records written by black people. On the label, it's written by a Jewish man or an Italian man, and they won't put his picture or her picture on the record, right? So these are the times that we're dealing with. And they don't believe that they should pay you what you deserve. It is what it is. I'll break down the scary part more. I gave you an abridged version in the room. Queen, you make a record, and it sells 1 million records. Is that a success? Is that a success? 1 million records. How much money do you believe you should make after you sold 1 million records? Give me the number. So you believe, so the Queen believes that if she sells 1 million records, she should make $1 million. Right? $1 million. Anybody else? Any other number? So the brother here says $2.5 million. Okay? So you guys are in college. So you don't need pen and paper for this. So you have 1 million records. And I'm not a fan of this guy, but I'm not going to disrespect him. He's in heaven as well. Steve Jobs, who created Apple. Right. And I'm not a fan of his because when we were making records, say one record, a single, we were selling our records for $4.99, right? Albums, $14.99, sometimes $16.99.
That's right.
He created a tech, right? The iPod. And then he created the software that goes with that, the iTunes. And then he said, no, records should only be $1. And I'm like, wait a second, did you ask artists, do we want to sell our music for $1? He just said, no, well, if you're going to use my service and you're going to use my equipment, you're going to buy my equipment. And then, of course, the iPod turned into the iPhone and you can put the music on the iPhone. It's going to be $1 a song without asking any artist. It just shows like, oh, we mean nothing, right? But okay, let's go with this. You have a song, sells 1 million records. So in the total, when your record company, they sold 1 million records, how much is in the pot now? 1 million records times $1. How much? $1 million. Okay, fine. It's $1 million. The company would have given you an advance to make this record, right? So let's say that the advance is $50,000, right? They gave you $50,000 for you to create a song, mix it, master it, everything, and be ready to put it out there to the world, right? So $50,000. Here's the issue, the first issue. It's not free money, right? So there's a word that every artist hates. It's called recoupment. And what that means is the label is allowed to recoup that money, right, before they pay you, okay? So they gave you $50,000 to make the song. The song sells 1 million records. It's beautiful. It's platinum. So 50,000, just remember that number, okay? So now let's do the deductions, because here's the thing that is in the contract. And it's funny because I remember reading it many times when I was a young person saying, this doesn't sound right. You are engaging in a partnership. That's what it says in the contract. You are engaging in a partnership to record records. Back in my day, it would put the format: vinyl, cassettes, CDs. That doesn't exist anymore. They will just use to create songs, right? And in this partnership, we will lay out the money, the record company, but you are responsible 100% for the recoupment. That's not a partnership. I thought a partnership is 50-50. No. After the recoupment, then we will give you a percentage of the profits. When I was coming into music, it was about 12, 13%. Now, 16 to 20%. Let's say you were an incredible businesswoman, you wasn't going to take less than 20%. So you got your 20%. So let's start deducting. You wanted a very successful producer to produce the record, right? A Kanye West or a Timbaland, Pharrell, one of these brilliant people, right? They charge $100,000 to produce the record. And you say, but they're big time. I think I'll get a big hit. And you did get a big hit. So the label put out the $100,000. $100,000 is gone. What do you have left? You have $900,000. You start, remember, you made $1 million. You have $900,000. Okay.
Now.
You have $900,000. They are charging, so now you want to make a video to promote this record. You're trying to make a video to promote this record because that's what you got to do. The video cost these days about $100,000. So you're down to what? You're down to $800,000. Then there's marketing and promotion, right? They got to pay money to market this record on social media with boosts and all kinds of other things, magazines, online or traditional. And they don't even tell you the price for that. They just have a standard 25%, right? So you deduct the 25%, not off $800,000, but off of
The million.
the $1 million. So how much is that?
250,000.
Let's do the math.
250,000.
Oh, listen, this is college.
250,000.
Can't calculate that.
$250,000.
That's a quarter, so I'm
$250,000.
that is a quarter.
So remember, we was at 800,000 minus 250,000. You're at what? See, here's the mortgage payers. So this is 500. You're at 550,000. You're at 550,000. Okay. So that's the marketing and the promotion of the record, right? So then, one of the best ways to really promote this record is for you to go on tour, right? And be in front of people, right? To perform. But you're a new artist. So you don't have no drawing power, right? So the label has to pay to put you out there. Hey, I'm gonna have you open for Cardi B, because she's gonna go on a world tour. And you going on that tour to open up for 15, 20 minutes, oh man, you're gonna be in front of a lot of people. And people are gonna say, oh man, I liked her, let me go buy her record. So to put you on that tour and your crew, right, because now you need a crew, because you're not gonna perform the record for self. No. I mean, he said something. He said something that makes sense. If you're singing, you may have a band, so there's a crew. If you're rapping, you may not have a band like that. You might just have a DJ, but you still have a little crew. You know, a road manager. You know, things. You know, people to kind of make sure that you're okay. Right? Easy, 100 grand. Maybe even more, but at least easy 100 grand, because you're out, right? So flights, hotel, food, clothes, incidentals, 100 grand, 150 easy. So you had 400,000. You had 400,000, okay? So in my day, there used to be a deduction. And believe it or not, is the most, it made sense, I guess. Back in the day, records were made out of shellac, pretty flimsy. So when you put them on a truck to move, distribute to different towns and record stores, some of them would break. So they would have this thing called the breakage clause. So what they would, yeah, of course they got a solution for it. I like how you think. And the breakage clause is, hey man, we're gonna take 15% off the top for breakage, for records that break, 15%, right? Okay, maybe that makes sense back then. Once records turned to hard wax from shellac, they didn't break. They wouldn't take the clause out. 2 artists got the clause out. Who you think? Michael Jackson, Madonna. Got the clause out, the breakage clause. Now, there is no records. It's MP3s. There's nothing to break. They still keep it in there, but not 15%. So they brought it down to 5. 5% of $1 million is what?
50,000.
50,000. So you're at 350 now. When it comes to this business of music, you're at 350. Okay. So now you say to yourself, where's my money? Right? Where's my money? So they say, okay, 20%. Remember, you get 20%. But it's not of $1 million. So your percentage is going to get deducted from what's left.
From the net.
Because you're the last one paid. You're the last one paid. It's not a partnership. So 20% of 350, you ended up with what? 70,000. So that's your money. 70,000.
Come to work on that.
Now 70,000. Are we cool?
She said no.
Out of 70,000,
Remember.
who haven't you paid? Hold up, before that. Hold up. 70,000. Do you remember the first money I told you that's recoupable? It's 50.
No.
So when you take away that 50, how much do you have? You got 20,000. Who haven't you paid now with 20,000? The tax man. Which is why most rappers end up in tax problems. They were going to send Lauryn Hill to jail for taxes. Prince paid her bill. They sent Fat Joe to jail for taxes. They were going to send Snoop Dogg to for taxes. Luckily, he had enough money to pay it. But here's the funny thing. So that's the scary breakdown of the music business that he asked me in the other room. $20,000. So you didn't pay your manager yet, who wants 20%.
20% of 20.
Of what you made. She made 70,000. He wants 20%, right? I mean, it's a terrible business. But here's the thing. So one day, I'm watching Drink Champs. And Nori says for his big album, he wanted to work with Hype Williams, very famous director, right? He did the movie Belly. He was the director for Belly. And he did all of these Missy Elliott videos. And Missy Elliott had the most incredible videos. And he was the director of all these incredible Busta Rhymes videos. He charged $1 million to do a video. And Nori felt that he wanted Hype Williams to do the video. Def Jam said, let's go. I think you're going to sell a lot of records anyway. They paid Hype Williams to do the video. The video was incredible. Sorry. The video was incredible. And the album did great. The album sold over 1 million records. I don't want you guys to think I'm an idiot. But literally, when I was watching him tell this story, and he regretted it. He said, oh my God, I regretted paying $1 million for that video, this, that. Because most likely he didn't make no money on the album. But and this was literally 7 months ago, I saw it. So I'm 57, I'm not 18 no more, and I'm listening to him tell the story that he paid the $1 million. Def Jam paid the $1 million. He had to recoup that money. We went through your math. And I swear to God, it hit me. And it never hit me before. All these years. I said to myself, then Nori should have been, because he had to recoup the $1 million, he should have been able to give Hype Williams that 1099 and get the tax break from spending the $1 million. Wait a second. All the expenses we should be able to take off our taxes because it came out of our money. So then I thought I was going crazy. And I said, no, I'm wrong. There got to be a reason. No, because there's no way in the world I thought about this. Everybody should have thought about this. So I called one of my friends. He's in the music business too, Kwame. And I told it to him, Kwame, if you spend money or the label spends money and they have to recoup it from your money, isn't the tax break ours? Shouldn't we be able to take all those expenses off our taxes? Phone was silent. And then he cursed. And then he said, nah, there must be something in the contract. I said, do you have your contract with you? Because I read mine and it had nothing in there. So now I called another music friend, then another. Same behavior. So then I just got frustrated and went to a lawyer. And I said, it was a brilliant lawyer, she's a brilliant lawyer. And I said, ma'am, I want to ask you a question. If a label spends money on my behalf and I'm responsible for the recoupment, videos, promotion, marketing, tour assistance, all of this, but then I sell 1 million records or even more, and they take all that money back before they pay me, does it mean that I paid for those things? She said, yeah. I said, okay. So if I paid for those, because it was my recoupment, shouldn't I get the tax break from all those expenses? She was quiet. And then she said, well, isn't that how, but that works that way, right? You guys take it off your taxes? No, we go to jail. We don't take it off no taxes. That means the label get a tax break for money that they recouped from you. There should be something criminal about it. But if you didn't know, you just don't know. And I'm almost certain that young people that are going into the music business now still don't know. It came to me at 57. I don't know what's going to come to them unless I bump into them.
Or unless they listen to this.
Or they watch this. And no one at the label is going to say it. And they're going to watch their artists almost go to prison. Sony Music was watching Lauren about to go to prison. They didn't say, well, you sold 10 million, we'll pay the tax bill for you. Prince came and paid it. So that's where we are having problems in the most global culture made by us. That we're still getting robbed, right? And that's how you have an artist that may sell 1 million records still in the streets. He sold 1 million records, so he's popular. The popularity is there. The money for the record isn't there. Now, there is money there, and the money is on shows, not as a new artist. I'm talking about as now established artists. That's how they usually make their money, is from the shows. But if you don't understand money and what to do with money, that money can disappear too. Little, what's his name? Is his name Little Dirk? He's on trial for his life 8 months after signing a $24 million deal with Google. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So we have a lot to fix in this genre. And it's only young people that can fix it, right? When we came into the game, we didn't know anything about owning your likeness. Morgan Freeman is learning the hard way. You got to own your voice, because now AI can clone it and do all kinds of things without your permission. So ownership is the important thing. I've seen an artist come to me one time and say, Chubb, man, my music is doing good. I did it by myself. I got it on this. I got it on this platform, that platform. Man, I got 300,000 views and this and boom, boom. I'm going to stay independent. And I'm like, it's a good way to think. It won't be long, though. That ain't going to be long. Because at some point, he's going to want more. And at some point, some record company is going to come to him as a young guy or a young woman who still lives at home or lives in apartment 8B and say, hey, man, I got $250,000 for you to make these records. And that young person is going to say, let's go. And then they're going to get caught up in that math I just gave you, right? It's just a recycling thing. It just keeps on going.
So I want to jump in here for a second because you mentioned something back there, and I think it's important to understand because also just now you mentioned you had some a young man to say, hey, I'm independent, I want to stay this way, I have these likes, I have these followers, I have this, and you said something back there that there's a difference between pretty much owning wealth as a part of this process and fame.
Oh,
And
of course.
the fact that so many artists get caught up in the question of fame, like, oh, I'm in front, I'm famous, you know, I like the attention, but the not understanding the other pieces that come along with it from the financial perspective. So can you talk a little bit about that understanding of the wealth management piece that basically from that perspective of like the label or publishing house or whoever.
No, I understand.
And the fact that they understand, they don't care about the fame. You know, they care about a songwriter may not ever get on a mic and sing, but they have a lifetime of royalties that they're going to be collecting off of a song regardless of who sings it.
The reality to it is, this is not a hip hop problem. This is a young problem. Because young athletes go through these problems. Right? So it isn't just a hip hop problem. It's a young problem. But I was telling my young kings back there, Whitney Houston is and I'm almost certain she's still number one, but she may have dropped down to number two. But she's the number one selling female artist on the planet. Right? She sold over 100 million records, right? $1 billion+ worth of music. But her estate does not have none of that money. Do you know why? Because even with 100 million records, you're supposed to have money. Tell him.
Because she didn't write none of her songs.
She didn't write any of the songs. Because the wealth is in publishing as a writer. She was a singer and an incredible singer, one of the best singers. Remember, her biggest record that sold 30 million records was written by Dolly Parton, who made all that money, right? And will make that money forever, right? And then David Foster, who wrote many of those records. Then Kashif, who wrote some of those records. Even Jermaine Jackson, on her first 2 albums, wrote 2, 3 songs. So all of those writers made a lot of money, right? She didn't make that money. She made artist money, which is back to your percentage, 20%, right? She didn't make money that lasts forever, right? Forever. Like Burt Bacharach records and all these kinds of things. Forever, right? Because that's what publishing is. Luther Vandross is probably 6, 7 of his most incredible records. He wasn't the writer. These were remakes.
That's correct.
And that's how publishing works, the remake of a song, right? I Feel For You, Chaka Khan, was a Prince record, right? Prince wrote that record, right? So songwriting is the wealth, right? That's the wealth of it, not artistry. Artistry is fame and, you know, you can have an ego and it's beautiful, but that doesn't equate to money. You know, it's the songwriting where the money is. Now, there's something happening in hip hop now I'm not a fan of, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'm trying to figure out why is it happening all of a sudden. All of a sudden, these tremendous companies are buying, publishing, and the whole catalog from rappers. They bought Lil Wayne's catalog. They bought Irv Gotti's catalog before he passed away. They're buying all of these T-Pain's catalog the other day. And I'm sitting there going, why are they doing that now? They must know something that We haven't figured out yet whether the cost per share is going to go up or something. And rappers are selling it. So you're back to a company again coming to you and saying, hey, I think Wayne sold his for 50 million. He's a little guy, a little kid from Louisiana, grown now, and he's saying, wait a second, 50 million, I could take care of my family for the rest of my life. And he sold it, right? Kevin Hart just sold his whole thing, likeness and all, for like 200 million. And I'm sitting there like, why do this? It almost sounds like slavery in a way. You know, so you can't be you no more. You know, it's a strange thing. Now, do I have the answer of why this is happening? No. I'm just coming up with conspiracy things in my mind. Like, why would they do this?
But do you not realize what you just said? You can't be you anymore. Because somebody owns your likeness, they own you. You can...
About 8 months ago, I don't know if you guys started seeing this, and I got you, brother. About 8 months ago, they started putting up these AI-generated videos and things of Dr. Martin Luther King. And they were all like disrespectful. And Bernice King, Dr. King, she's livid about this though. So she's trying to figure out, how do I stop this? You know? So then you got to come down to, do you own his likeness? Do you own his likeness? Do you own his voice? Morgan Freeman, I'm telling you, is going through it right now. He's trying to figure out who does he sue, and it's like, yeah, who do you sue? It's a scary time when it comes to ownership of what belongs to you, right? And there are ways to own certain things. I mean, you could own your likeness, and you know. I don't think they have anything in the legal books yet about owning your voice, like the tone of it. I don't think they've come up with that, so you have to wait for Congress, and I don't have a lot of faith in them to come up with that. But no, it's very, very scary when it comes to the music business right now. It's very scary, and these are music majors, many music majors that was here.
No, you hit on the same thing I was going to say with the emergence of AI artists and AI music, to be able to have the likeness but then create the AI part of it. The record label doesn't have an artist to pay, so they recoup all of the money themselves because I already own this likeness and I can put it out using an AI voice or AI artist and
Yeah.
put the music out.
Right, if they want to do it that way, I mean, all of it is superficial and artificial, right? And that comes down to if people are really going to listen to that. And there's a big debate anyway about streaming, another way to steal from artists, because you don't even get the dollar for the record. It's like 0.0 point something cents, you know, for the stream. And it's like, but how do I measure the stream? How do you measure the stream? Like, how do I know when you tell me it's 1 million streams that it ain't 2 million and that it's not 3 million? How do we measure this? And so you're in college to learn, and hopefully, in addition to everything else you're learning about business and the rules of money. Because without the rules of money, boy, it's going to be a hard road. And that's what hit most artists. That's why they always call them starving artists, right? And not just rappers, and we're talking about musicians and singers and blues, jazz, and actors. Actors are going through it hard now because there's no more movies going into the theater like that, you know, except for Marvel movies. Right, so you're not able to get that same amount of money for a streaming movie and things of that nature. Let me tell you, the crooks have found ways to keep crooked. Made up word. You know, so it's up to young people to figure out, how do we stop getting robbed? And what is that answer? And I told you, somebody asked me that question, and I didn't have the answer. You know, we would have to think about it. People say ownership. Ownership is great. But when somebody else owns the platform, like I said, Steve Jobs was able to dictate to me what I'm going to sell my record for, because he created a piece of tech. And once the world said, oh, that's the tech we're going to use, we're not going to go to a brick and mortar record store, and we're not going to do that. So now he has the power to say, your song is $1. What is going to stop him from saying, yo, your song is going to be 50 cents? We're not in those chairs, right? And it gets very, very scary. The reason why I like coming to colleges to speak to young people is because your brain is new. You may have the answer. My brain is fatigued trying to figure out the answer. I just came up with the whole recoupment thing 7 months ago. You know, so it becomes that on a cultural level of business. And how do we keep this money? Why are we then, with success, selling all of our catalogs to people? Like, why are we doing that? You know, James Brown had one of the most prolific music catalogs ever, and they stole it from him. 30 years later, you can get your publishing back. You can get your publishing back. And his daughters had to still fight for that publishing, even though it's a law. Because they said to themselves, man, we cannot allow you to own I Feel Good. We put it in every movie. We have it in every commercial. How? No. We can't allow a couple of girls from Augusta, Georgia to own this. And they come up with all kinds of ways to try to get that from you. Isaac Hayes' son is fighting now for his publishing. When the president went and used one of the Isaac Hayes records without permission. You know, these are the things that we go through. So understanding business, because most of those people back then, they understood business somewhat. They understood what I call the Aretha Franklin School of Business. I'm coming to the show with my pocketbook, put the money in the bag, and I'll sing. And then I'm going home. Because that was Miss Franklin, right? But that's not business, right? But that's how she did it. And that's how James Brown did it. And that's how most artists back then did it. That's how they did it. You know, and he was a little more savvy than everybody else because he owned radio stations. And he was overwhelmingly brilliant. Probably the most brilliant musician ever walked the planet. You go to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was ahead of his time. He was speaking to Paul McCartney when they did 2 records together, right? Big records. And Paul McCartney says to him, man, the Beatles, which is the group he was in, publishing is coming up for sale. Man, I would love to buy this, man. These are my songs. I wrote these songs. Because white people get jerked too. Michael heard him say that, and he went and bought the publisher. Which ended their friendship, right? That ended their friendship. Because Paul McCartney didn't have the money at that point, but Michael did. He bought the publisher. But this publishing meant a lot of things. because it encompassed a situation when Sony ATV had to mingle with this publishing. It basically meant that everything that came out of Sony, Michael Jackson gets a piece of. That's Beyonce, Nas, Barbra Streisand, Bob Dylan. It's ridiculous. With this one black man here, right? And they knew, I got to get this publishing back from him. I got to get it back from him. There's no way in the world this one black man can own all this music, right, from all these white people. They got it back when he died, obviously, because at that point, his estate sold it to them for $5 billion. Again, a lot of money. We don't tend to want to hold on to these creations. I think it was about 22 years ago, Berry Gordy sold 80% of Motown for $350 million. And I remember reading it in the Billboard magazine, and I was mad about it. I was like, yo, man, why would he sell this? All of these songs. And I was upset about it. And then about 6 years ago, he sold the last 20% for $2 billion. Oh, wow. So 20% was more than 80%. Right? But I guess he figured, let me leave some money for my family, my children, instead of leaving the songs. I would have left the songs, to be honest with you. But he said, hey, it is what it is. Gamble and Huff did the same thing, right? Publishing, big publishing. Let me give you my assessment of how R. Kelly gets out of jail. I'm going to give you my assessment. I told this to my listeners before, and they would call and debate me. R. Kelly got 30 years in jail. I think he's been in there 3 or 4 years now, right? So that's a long time. He got 26 years. He also has one of the most prolific publishings that he doesn't own. But his 30th year is coming. Maybe another, if I had to take a guess, 2 years? Maybe another 2 years. He'll get to that 30th year for his revision, where the publishing comes back to him. This is I Believe I Can Fly. Okay? So this is what's going to happen. One day, he's going to be in the prison, and a little white man's going to walk in there and say, hey, man, can we have a conversation? He's going to say, listen, man, did you do your revision? I say, yeah. Okay. We will give you $100 million for that publishing. Now, his publishing is worth $1 billion, but they're not going to give him that. So they're going to say, yo, we'll give you $100 million for your publishing. You can get yourself out of jail with $100 million. A couple of governors, some money, this, that. Get yourself out of prison, move to Florida. Don't get taxed for the rest of it. That's how he gets out of prison. I swear to God. Publishing is going to get him out of prison. Except that he would lose the majority of the money from that publishing. Because I'm telling you, they have ways of getting that publishing back. They just got Prince's publishing back. Something that he always went on television and said, I will die first before I give it. But he died. It went to his sister. His sister got sick. She sold it, then she died. So now Purple Rain and everything else is now back to Warner Brothers, something that he despised, right? There's only a couple of publishings left. You got R. Kelly's, you got Babyface, you got Stevie Wonder. There's another one. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. But R. Kelly, oh, they want that I Believe I Can Fly. That's the biggest graduation song on the planet.
It sure is.
It's a song that comes once in a lifetime, right? And I'm telling you, when they come up in that prison, the minute he does that reversion, and they're all waiting for it. They're gonna go in there, and they may even have other things prepared for him, like, hey, we'll speak to the governor first. Hey man, he's gonna want to get out of prison. Make that happen. Whether it's 10 million for you or whatever the money is, right? Because that's how politics go. And they're gonna come in there, they're gonna give him a tenth of what it's worth. Hey man, with $100 million, you spend 10 million getting yourself out, you have plenty of money, 90 million, you go to Florida, there's no taxes. That's it, man. You take care of your children, take care of your life, and you didn't spend 30 years in prison. Pay some of the victims and go on about your life. I'm telling you, I see it clearly. And it's something, I don't want you to think, and I hope I didn't make the music business and hip hop seem so gloom and dark. But if you're going to be the light, you need to know that it's dark. So you can try to figure out how you navigate through some of that stuff, right? Because some of you may become lawyers and things of that nature and try to come up with different ways and different laws and different ways to protect people. Like one of our reversion issues, I was upset with Barack Obama because music and publishing is governed by the government. Copyright is a law governed by the government. So we were always trying to get the reversions to be less, right? 10 years and things of that nature. Every president ignored it, right? So when Barack Obama got elected, we like, yeah, we'll be able to find ways to get to him, right? For this reversion. And people came to him, big shots, like the Stevie Wonders of the world and the Patti LaBelles of the world. And hey man, you need to look at this. And somebody scared him because he did not look at it. He probably figured, yo, this is something that's been around too long for me to go meddle in this. Because he did not take a look at it, took a look for 2 terms. I said, okay, maybe he didn't do it the first term, but you know, second term, he ain't got nothing to lose. Nah, he did not look at it, and it just shows how the structure is still there, right? The structure and the racism and everything is still there. The system. You know, Frances Cress Welsing used to talk about the system of racism. You guys should read about her at some point. And musical racism and business racism, and it's a strong thing. So overall, in just conclusion, we definitely need a better understanding of business and ownership, which is fine, as long as we know what we're owning and how to protect it and everything else, right? There's some fundamental things we need to learn. You know, I was just reading a story the other day of Pinky Cole, young queen that came up with Slutty Vegan. Right? And I remember when she started that company because it was a food truck and it was food trucks and it was wrapped down the block. Right? And then she went and did some brick and mortar. And then a couple of years later, bankruptcy. So there had to be some steps that we are not paying attention to. I don't know what it all can be, but there's certain things that doesn't seem to resonate, you know, and we need to be able to figure that out for young people of whatever you're going to do with your career. Because I don't know what you're going to do in your career. Right now, I think I just read this 2 days ago. 54% of jobs that make money are jobs I don't even know if you guys want, because I can tell you what they are. Plumbing, electrician, diesel mechanic, elevator mechanics, all these HVAC, all these blue collar jobs, right? Those are what make money. People usually don't go to college to do blue collar jobs, right? So there are specialty jobs, of course, doctor and scientist and STEM stuff and stuff like that. So you put that to the side. But AI is going to take away a bunch of jobs. So it comes down to what are you guys going to do once you leave here? Owing money, right? You're going to leave here owing money, right? So what are you going to do once you leave here, okay, to handle that? And hopefully you keep some of these stories about hip hop, because you could take the word hip hop out of these math equations and put it in every other business. I'm just showing you that the glitz and glamour stuff you saw is not this, it ain't what it is, right? So the business side of it is something that you got to really think about as you're picking classes, right? To understand money, understand business. You know, there's a man named Warren Buffett. Richest man in the world. Well, one of them. Sorry, I think he's number 3 or 4. One of those numbers. The guy eats McDonald's every day. Every day. Eats McDonald's every day. I went to a thing where he was speaking, so I didn't get a chance to speak to him, but I was in the audience like you guys. And he talked about money. A man that drives a 1960-something car that he's never changed, lived in the same house since the 60s, eats McDonald's every day, and he walks around with $300 cash, and he's worth $200 billion. He's probably a person that should be studied. But who studies him? Do we get a chance to study him? Probably not, because we have been taught, hey man, I got to buy jeans for $5,000. And I got to have a bag for $30,000. I got to have a t-shirt for $100 or $150 for a white t-shirt with nothing on it. We came up in that culture probably by design to think that's wealth, right? To think that's wealth. And so we have a lot to do. I'm optimistic that the young minds will come up with some of these alternatives for some of these things. Definitely when it comes to business. I apologize. Any questions? Because it's better, I want to hear from you guys. Oh.
I'm Dr. Renita Irving, and I teach in the nursing department here. And I can't remember if you answered your mama's question.
Oh, yeah. I didn't answer her question because I was upset about what the answer would be. And that's why I didn't answer the question. Because she asked me, when it's all said and done, and they write this piece in the annals of history, was hip hop positive for our people? As a person who loves hip hop and has been part of hip hop, My answer would be, it was in the beginning. It was in the beginning. It gave young people an outlet to express themselves, an outlet to learn about music, to learn about other genres of music, to respect music. But then we lost our way. And we lost our way in a big way. Now young rappers, I see it every day. I think it was 2 of them last week. Under 30 killed. Some of them are on trial for RICO charges, murder charges, with gold and platinum records. Under the title hip hop. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's just not supposed to be that.
So how do we get back to the beginning? Because you and I are the same age, and you're older than me, so I remember when it was great. But so how do we get back to that greatness that we enjoy?
How do we get back to the greatness of anything? Of literally of anything. Of men and women relationships. How do we get back to the beginning of any of it? When hip hop got into the pants sag culture, you guys should remember those. And some of it still exists. The pants sag culture, which is a prison culture, right? I remember speaking to some young women. I said, hey, you know something? If you don't pay those boys any attention, they'll have to pull up their pants. Sounded poetic back then. I don't think that was the answer. Because they're so used to it at this point. I don't think that was it. I don't think that was the answer. It sounded good at the moment. How do we get back? Man, I watched some videos, and you guys, I'm sure, have seen many of these videos. And it's more now of men going back and forth in an argument with a young woman and hitting her and pushing her. And I'm like, wait a second. What is this? I'll give you a story. I was at the radio station, and I was coming out of the radio station. I was going to my car, and I was parked outside in the back parking lot. And there were all these kids around. So I couldn't see my car. There was all these kids around. So I'm like, oh man, these kids are messing with the car. I go closer to the car. There's a young guy choking a girl on the hood of my car. So I'm looking around. I'm like, is this a skit? Or like, are these kids, because you don't know these days. So I'm looking around because the kids, they got their phones out. So I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. So then I hear her now kind of saying, so I pull the kid off and he starts cursing at me. I'll do this to you, I do that to you, I do this to you, I do this to you. So, not my finest moment. I'm old school. I'm a father. I looked at him like my son. And I don't know if my brain said, what would you do if this was Don? That's what my son's name. So I hit him. So when I hit him, I had his undivided attention. And I'm looking at these girls and these people, and they're filming it. And I'm like, why are y'all filming this? Why are you filming it? So the young lady is like, he hit me and he did this and did this, and now he's trying to tell his side of what happened. And this is what happened. You can't make this thing up here. Where the radio station is and the parking lot is about a block and a half from a venue called the Tabernacle in Atlanta. And J. Cole was performing there. So that's why all these kids was around, right, going there. So he's telling me that he saved up his money. This is his girlfriend. He saved up his money to buy the tickets to take her to the show, but then his boss told him he had to work. So he said, he told her, I can't go. You take one of your friends. So he gave her the tickets to take one of her friends to go to see J. Cole. So when he went to work, his boss said, what are you doing here? I thought you was going to J. Cole. He said, what are you talking about? You told me I had to work. He said, man, I was only joking, pulling your leg. He said, well, it's over now because I already gave her the tickets and it is what it is. I might as well. No. His boss got upset, felt bad, and gave him money to buy another ticket for himself to go to the concert. So when he rushed down to the concert, and she came and they're there and they parked and she's with another guy. So he gets upset. And I'm sure you could understand the situation, see what happened. And he went at it the wrong way. And he did what he did. So he's explaining it. She's not refuting what he's saying, right? So I guess that's what happened. So the cops come. And they explain what happened. And the cop comes to me and he says, Chubb, what are you doing here with these youngins? I said, man, I was trying to go home. And they told you what happened and da-da-da-da. So he was like, don't get involved with these young people. I said, what, you not supposed to watch the girl get choked? He said, listen, man, some of these guys will come out with guns and shoot you. And I'm like, yeah, but nah, I'm okay with that. God's gonna watch out for me. I ain't gonna watch the little girl get choked out here, right? So then they let the girl go, and the guy was here, and he said, Chubb, you think I should arrest this kid? I said, I don't think you should arrest this kid. I said, man, how much the tickets? And that was $288 and this and that and blah. Well, you learned a $288 lesson. You know, I mean, it is what it is. So wherever your tickets that your boss gave you are, I guess you can go. And he was frustrated and stuff like that. I gave him my number. And we speak to this day. We speak to this day because he's doing good. And I spoke to his mom, and he told his mom what happened, and when I spoke to her, she was like, Chubb, I'm so sorry this happened. I was like, hey, man, he's a nice kid. I think he just handled it wrong. And, you know, some conversations need to happen to him. about how you treat women, back to how do we get back to the beginning. So it's hard to get back to the beginning. We get involved because we don't have the influence that the phone has. We don't have the influence that the algorithm has. So you guys learn from the algorithm while we're still trying to teach old school values of things. I'm telling you, when I was young, I'll give you a quick story. When I was young, me and my friends used to make money in New York. I'm from New York, from Brooklyn. We used to make money as kids shoveling snow, right? So when the snowstorm came, oh man, we're gonna make money. We're going there, we're digging cars out, we're doing people's thing, that boom, boom, boom. So my father comes home one day and he says, hey, were you shoveling snow? I said, yeah. Man, you would have been proud of me today, boy. I made a bunch of money. And he was like, you didn't shovel Miss Zito's stoop and front and driveway. And I said, I rang her bell, but she didn't answer. And he said, well, you know, she lost her husband. He passed away, and she's older now. And you mean you were waiting to get money to do her thing? So I'm sitting there, and I'm smart enough to know it's a trick question. You know, this is a trick question. So he's like, is that being a man? That you want her to come out at 60 something and shovel snow? No, I'm about to put my thing on now. Put my thing on, my hat, go get my stuff, go shovel the snow. That's old school, right? That's old school stuff. So to get back, we got to get back with everything. Not just music or business, everything, right? How we treat each other, you know, how we handle each other, you know, how do we handle women and chivalry, and, you know, so it's a lot to get back to, you know. And even though I dodged your original question again, as my mother's question,
It's still unanswered.
Queen, it's a hard answer to give because my answer is not going to be good, and I'm gonna be upset about it. You know, if I say no, it was not a positive influence. It just, black women are the most educated people on the planet, in America, hands down. It is what it is. But it's very difficult for them to figure out who they're going to marry. Because for us and black men, we got some work to do. But then how you do the work? You know, how do you do that work? I mean, it's a lot that goes into that and influences of that. My father was a incredible man. He was quiet, but he was very stern. He only spoke once. That's the only time I remember hearing him speak was once. He ain't say it more than once. He was an imposing figure. And he came to this country with a Jewish man brought him and my uncle to this country because they had a skill. And the skill was underwater welding. And it's a dangerous skill. So they came here on a H-1 visa, come to the country. to do a project for Con Edison in New York, the Midtown Tunnel. And it's the 60s. So there's racism. So you had white workers and you had these Caribbean men, a ton of them, doing the job, and the white men felt like, why are they getting paid the same as us? And then you had some that didn't graduate to that level to get paid as the same as them. And they were arguing about that too. So racism came and they went to the Caribbean men and said, you know, we're gonna have to lower your pay. And the Caribbean men had conversations with themselves and said, nah, we'll just go back to our country. So my father and his brother was like, we're gonna go back to Jamaica and raise our kids in Jamaica. And I'm a little boy at the point. So they let all these white men go out there under the water to do the job. They really didn't know the job and the nuances of the job, hit gas bubbles, and it killed 130 of them. This was a big problem. Lawsuits and everything else. So they run back to the Caribbean men. You got to come back to work. But what we want you to do now is to teach these white men this trade, right? Which the Caribbean men basically said, no. We just want to do this job and leave, man. You know? So they were doing the job and stuff like that, and then it just shows the depth of that system, that racism and that system, right? So my dad was, like even when I wanted to get into hip hop, he didn't know what hip hop was. Everything to him was Bob Marley and Gregory Isaacs. He didn't know nothing about hip hop. He just said, oh, my son wants to do something and he seems to like this thing, okay, whatever. I would come to him and play, yo, Dad, listen to this. Do you like it? That's what he would say to me. Do you like it? Yeah. That's all he said to me. When they offered me my record deal, I brought my mother to the meeting because I told my mother and father that they wanted to give me a record deal. And my father, but he always called my mother Judge because her name was Georgia, but he'd say, Judge, you go. I don't know what these people are doing. So she came with me. And they came and they gave all the compliments. Yeah, your son is talented, and oh my God, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and we're gonna pull this and blah, 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 and da, da, da. Here's the contract. It was as thick as a Bible. And we're like, we take this home, right, to read this or whatever? Well, it's the standard stuff. You know, this, that, boom, boom. We took it home. We came back, and my mother said, there's a part in the contract about that you guys will own the publishing. And then I had to figure out, why would you want to own the publishing? And she's going back and forth with them, and they're telling her, well, it's a standard deal. That's the basic deal of the business, right? Blah, 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 blah. And so she says, I don't want to give the publisher. I don't want to give none of the publisher. And they're like, well, we don't think we're going to be able to do the deal without the publishing, da, da, da. So I'm just sitting there like, wow. So then she says, okay, well, thanks for, considering him and blah, blah, blah. So we're leaving. And I never forget this. We're leaving and we get out of the place on 21st Street, going to 6th Avenue. She wanted to take me to get some pizza. And I said, Mom, you know all this publishing thing? She said, Richie, I don't know what it is, but these white people want it bad, so I just said no. Because I didn't know what it was, but she's going back and forth with them. So I'm like, you must know what it is. So, and she's like, do you see how bad they want this? So I just said no. So I said, so you don't know what it is? And she's like, no. So how do we find out what it is? Right, so we went down the street to 18th Street and went into Barnes & Noble. And she went to the thing and said, I need a book on music publishing. And she bought Ahmet Ertegun's book. And we went home and she was reading the book. Then she had me read the book. And then we understood what publishing was. And I said, wow, yeah, we would want to keep that. But then they came back to us and they said, how about this? We'll let him keep his publishing, but we have to administer the publishing. So I'm like, okay, that was a chapter in there, in that book. It's a smaller percentage, right? It's 15%. So we go, and then my mother just basically says, what do you want to do? I said, I really want to put this record out. And so we did the deal. It was the best decision ever made for me from a Caribbean woman who had no idea what hip hop was. Because I didn't have to go through a lot of things that artists went through when it came to their publishing, because they didn't own mine. They had the administration rights, meaning they were allowed to say the song can go into that movie or the song can go into that commercial, right? They had the right to say that for their 15%, but I still got my percent. And my cousin got his percent because he was the producer of the records. And I think about it all the time. I'm like, the power of a mom, yo. Because I would have got robbed like everybody else, right?
Also the power of reading and comprehension.
Yeah, after we got the book. Yeah, I didn't get the book before, but I got it after that.
Dr. Jay Williams, and the department chair for business administration. Your name and your music is concreted in history, okay? A group of men brought you to Loganville, to the mansion 5 years ago. You and Kwame, you remember behind that mansion?
Yes.
Our strategy was to sign you on and start the marketing process, which we did. So we had about 1,700 people out there. But the level of energy that you brought to that, because there wasn't no lights and glitz and glamour. We didn't even have a stage.
There was no stage there. I remember. I was just sitting on the side waiting.
Underneath and you had about that much space that you were could work in, because all the people, you remember all the people came up.
No, I remember.
So talk about the preparation, after we signed the contract, when you came out there without all the glitz and the glamour and performed, people are still talking about that to this day when you and Kwame put that show on in Logan. And many of you all don't know, but Chubb knows, Loganville, Georgia is the backwood country.
Yeah, boy. Yeah.
I know when you was driving out there, you was like, where are we? Where we? But the preparation to come to that event, and you perform as if you were in Madison Square Garden, you left no stones unturned. So I don't know how you prepare. Can you speak to our students and let them know that the money is good, but the preparation to get to that point is a critical piece of the puzzle. You can't just get on this stage and think like it's gonna happen, okay? But so if you could speak to that, that would be great.
So I appreciate that. What the performance part of your career is an important part. The representation, because people don't just want you to sing songs. You know, hey, I'm just going to sing my song and you should be okay with that, right? Even some of these young rappers now, they don't even sing the song. They have the song playing with the words and kind of singing every other word. I have no idea who started that nonsense, but that's not what performing is. But yeah, I don't know how that became a thing, but like when I first came into performing, my first show shouldn't have been my first show because that's a big show for a person that, for their first song, but it was a 20,000 seater. It was in DC, Washington DC, at the Cap Center, and it was Rare Essence, go-go band, big band, Trouble Funk, another big band, Dougie Fresh, Heavy D, UTFO, Salt and Pepper, and Rob Bass. And this new artist, Chubb Rock, that no one knows, right? So I'm telling my mom, and I'm like, Mom, this is a big show. I don't know how I'm on this show, but they're giving me 6 minutes, and I got to do something for these 6 minutes. So she says, what are you going to wear? And I said, I wasn't even thinking about that kind of stuff. And my mother is Jamaican, and my aunts, and my grandmother's skill is that she was a seamstress. So she taught all of this to her daughters, which she had 9 daughters, no sons. And my mother is number 6. So she says, her and my aunt are like, come here. They're measuring and they're doing all of this. And they made this black outfit. And I'm like, yo, this outfit is kind of nice. So they made this black outfit. She said, tell me what you're going to do for the 6 minutes. I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do for the 6 minutes. I'm going to come up there, start the song, get into it, and I don't know what I should do. Should I try to dance? I got 2 left feet. I don't know exactly what else to do. So she says, just feel it. And her and my aunt are giving me advice that is terrible. And I got on stage, did the show, and it went pretty cool because the crowd knew the song and they did most of the work, right? But then I got off the stage and got a chance to watch. So I watched Rob Bass, and I said, okay, he uses the stage in these ways. And then I watched UTFO, and they had a routine because they were dancers. So they had this routine, and it was nice. And then Salt and Pepper, and they had like this incredible routine. And then I got a chance to watch Dougie. And his thing was totally different. He had a prop on stage, like a teepee, and it spun, and it had things flashing out of it. Then he jumped out of it, and then it was this whole thing, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do all of this. And then something I told you in your math, because I was on a certain record company label, they had other artists on that label. And one of the artists they had on that label was Anita Baker. And she was going on tour for the Rapture album. So they said, Chubb, we're putting you on that tour. You're gonna open for her, right? By this time I had a little more experience and stuff like that. Yeah, it doesn't go together. but she was on Elektra Records and so was I. And the record took off. So I'll never forget it. It was me, my brother, two of my friends that were dancers for me, and my cousin who was the road manager. And we get to the show, and the show was in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're in the backstage part, and we're looking, we see Anita Baker's name, we see Tony's name on it. So we're looking around, and I don't see my name. So speak to one of the security, hey sir, we're opening the show. I don't know, where do we go? Like, is there a dress room for us? Who are you? Shabra. Oh man, yeah. You guys don't get no dressing room. Miss Baker doesn't want rappers to have dressing rooms. We're like, what? Miss Baker does not want what? No dressing room. So I tell the guys, no dressing room. We're changing out in the parking lot. So we're changing. I see the line up, and I see my name, and it says we have 25 minutes. So I'm like, brother, there's 20,000 people out there. I'm going crazy out there. Because I gotta make a name for myself with this. So whatever it is, I'm gonna try it. So they came back to us and they said, you guys are getting 10 minutes. We said, what are you talking about, man? The paper says 25 minutes. It says it right here. No. You guys are getting 10 minutes. So I tell my brother, I said, man, this is not shaping out to be what I think it's supposed to be, man. He said, don't worry about it. That's 20,000 people. Give them the best 10 minutes you got. I said, man, but I thought we were going to be able to do this and do that and blah. And he comes to me and he says, they paid us. I said, 10 minutes it is. So we get on stage, we're having fun, the crowd is loving it. We went longer than 10 minutes, so around the 13th minute is when Treat 'em Right comes on, which means another 4 minutes is gonna go on, 4.5 minutes, and the crowd is going crazy. And we're performing, and it's just beautiful. And then the music turns off. And we're like, what happened? The music. So we get off the stage, but I hear the crowd going, Chubb, Chubb. And I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. So I'm at the side. So guy comes up and says, Chubb, just go and finish the song, man. And I'm like, I'm not gonna finish the song, man. I wanna do the whole song over. Right? Because y'all shouldn't have turned off the music on me. You said 25 minutes, and then you did this, right? So they gave us to do the song over. So now we're sitting in this little area because we don't have a dressing room. And Miss Baker comes, and she says, nice song. And I'm like, and she walks off, and we're like, Anita Baker said it's a nice song. So I made it. And then I watched her show, and I seen her engagement and how she was manipulating them and doing certain things, and because her talent is extraordinary. And then I'm watching Tony, and they're killing it. And then further down the tour was Guy, and they used to really kill it. And Teddy, and then you learn, wait a second, this is not about singing songs, right? This is about giving people an experience to leave there with, to say, man, I had a good time, right? I'm there to sweat this cream of nature out.
Y'all
So-
don't even know what cream of nature is. Do you?
Yeah.
Y'all know what it is? It's relaxing.
So we can have a good time. So a gentleman can come years later and say, man, they're talking about it now. So that's why we are there. But we learned that from others. Same way I'm sure people felt when they went to see James Brown and how they felt when they left after seeing him, after they seen Parliament Funkadelic, after they seen the Mighty OJs. It's just, it got to be more than just singing the record. And that's what goes on with hip hop now, unfortunately. I'm sorry. They just sing the record. And they sing the record on top of the record. And that's not performing. With high ticket prices. With high ticket prices. But you think about it. I used to go to Essence Festival. And they would have Janet Jackson in the Superdome. Megastars. But even though if they had Janet Jackson or whoever, Frankie Beverly has to close the show because of what they brought to the show. That's what I would pay attention to. What you bring to the show. What the OJs bring to the show. What Cameo brings to the show. Okay? Not just who has more hits. You know, it's what you're going to bring, that extra thing you're going to bring to the show. So, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. One side, I want to say thank you for speaking with our students. They learned a lot, especially some of the music majors, so I want to say thank you for that. My question is, we know that there's a huge push in propaganda to push one type of hip-hop. I think this is going back towards where hip-hop is today, right? What are your thoughts on them pushing one particular type? I know you brought up with the invention of gangster rap and how that kind of is pushed now. What are your thoughts on that, and do you believe that we can get back to where hip-hop really started if we educate ourselves on the history of hip-hop?
You know what's interesting about that question? There's a narrative with a few artists that say that they were at those meetings. I wasn't at those meetings. That said that the prison system loved gangster rap and the pushing of gangster rap because it basically brought more black men to prison, right? Is that a conspiracy theory? Is that real? I don't know. It worked, whatever the situation is, but it worked. I heard something else that they said, well, you can determine black men that are going to go to prison by how they complete the 4th grade. Right?
Depending on the setting, depending on the state.
So if something like that is true, then the connection between prison and hip hop can, I guess, easily be true. Right? If you're following what gangster rap does and how it has influenced men, I'm actually very lifted that none of the queens of hip hop ever engaged in any of that nonsense. Right? They're not going to prison. So it's still back to black men when it comes to this, right? So is that the connection? Maybe, right? But this comes down again to your question about, so then what was the influence of hip hop? Is it positive if it's sending black men to prison? You know, it doesn't make sense. You know, I was one of my friends, his granddaughter is a little girl that's way before her time. Like she was on the planet before. She got to be about 7 or 8 or something like that. And she came to me one day and she said, because she calls me Uncle Richie. She said, Uncle Richie, that guy Puff Daddy, he's in jail, but they said he's a billionaire. Billionaires go to jail? And I'm like, they shouldn't go to jail with $1 billion. But what does that show young people? Wait a second. I could make $1 billion and go to jail. What does it show us when you get to that amount of money and yet you can still go to prison? You know, it just, hip hop went left, man. And I would love for us to kind of get back on track. And getting on track is not going to mean a couple of good records or a couple of positive records. It's a whole cultural movement to get back. And I'm just trying to figure out, how do we do it? You all will have to come up with that answer, because it seems like a long road to get back. But there's a lot to this, you know. Somebody asked me a question the other day. I don't know if you guys seen this, but Nipsey Hussle's brother, Black Sam is his name, following and continuing his brother's legacy, he opened a new location for his Marathon Burger place in Long Beach, California, right? Where Snoop Dogg is from. Snoop actually came to the grand opening. So everybody's thinking, man, this is a beautiful thing. Continuing the legacy for his brother, Nipsey. Gunshots all through there, right? 1 dead, 2 hurt. People running all over the place. So I was on the air and we were talking about this. And one of the callers called in and said, Chubb, you can't, when you make it, you can't bring your business back in the hood, because then things like this happen. So then we started talking about it. You mean you can't bring a business back in to your own neighborhood? No, you can't. And that's what he said. And we started debating about it. My mother owned a restaurant and a bar, and then she had 2 of them and whatever. And it was in the hood. And she would tell me, yeah, I hire some of these men that are homeless and this and that, because you got to have the neighborhood involved or they'll come and rob you, right? So I'm like, I wonder if that's what she was talking about. But one of my friends, Marvin Dixon, said, Chubb, you can own things in the hood. You can bring your restaurant in the hood. Don't let people know it's yours. So it could be the business, but you don't put your brand in there. That was his answer. I don't know if you guys agreed to it or not. He said, if they think it's yours, because he told me a story, Marvin. He said, Chubb, Sugar Ray Robinson, bro. Don't you remember? I said, what don't I remember? Don't you remember he owned an ice cream store in Harlem? Then he owned a clothing store, remember? Fancy suits. He owned a candy store. Harlem Nights is actually based on that. He owned a candy store. He owned this. He owned everything. And then the people said, why should he own everything? Then they robbed it, and they did this and broke that and set this on fire and did it. He should have just opened it. But it shouldn't have been called Sugar Ray's. He shouldn't have put his brand there. He could put his business there and put his money there, but not that it's his. And I don't know if you guys agree to that. I don't know. To me, I feel bad that if that's true, I don't know. But again, another black eye of hip hop was that incident with Nip. Because think about Nipsey Hussle himself. He made it. He was doing great, and he said, "Oh, I made some money. Let me open a clothing store and a business where I'm from." And they killed him in front of his store. So, am I still dodging your question? I'm sorry. I apologize.
You answered it, right? Yeah. It may not have been the answer we wanted, but you answered it.
But I think it's a necessary answer and question, right? I think it's necessary for us to be able to start the reassessment process so that we can, so we can not only develop the conversation, but also the thought processes behind what it is now that we all have to do and our own individual engagement of what it is that we take on, how we do that, and in what medium or way we do it. Because it's going to look different for her than it is for her, than it is from him, than it is for anybody else. It's not going to be the same way for everybody, but I think that there is a necessary conversation that has to happen to even open us up or our mindset to the point of even thinking about how do we think about this. But if we don't even talk about it so that we can think about it, to open up the conversation of how to think about it, we're going to end up where we are, which is...
You know what's funny? I forgot to ask my queens here. Do you guys listen to hip hop? You listen to hip hop?
I feel like, right, if you have a certain level of intellectualism, listening to something will influence you into wanting to do it. Because I can listen to people talk about their lifestyle all day. That doesn't make me want to follow it. I still want to, go get a job in working in biology, doing stuff in science because that's what I like.
That's what I was gonna ask. So if you're listening to hip hop and it has all this negative stuff in it, negative drug talk, robbery talk, over sexuality, all this stuff. So you guys are able to filter that out, is what you're saying. And I don't know if it's the same thing for everybody. That you filter those parts out, but you just enjoy, I'm assuming, the beat and maybe some other element, the hook or something. Is that what it is?
Yeah, like the culture that it comes from, I feel like we still appreciate that because people are different from us. I know I don't come from the same thing that a lot of people who rap come from, and I appreciate listening to other cultures and just hearing about like what they do, how they live.
Because sometimes some of the lyrics about the hood life and some of the street things can also be fabricated. Because some of these guys are middle class guys. And that's only one type, right? Because they usually ignore the more positive type. And J. Cole and Common and Guru, Gangstar. And,
I got a point. And just because y'all said that, J. Cole's my favorite rapper. But if I said that to a younger crowd, they would be like, ew.
Right, they would probably think that it's corny.
Right, why you don't listen to Baby Keem? Okay. So basically, like, okay, if I want to listen to some music, I want to listen to something that's going to put something in my mind, make me think about something positive. Not me wanting to go kill everybody in the world.
See, that's where we are, because people like the car crash, right? That's what it is. But think about it, right? I never met Oprah Winfrey, but in my mind, I wanted to meet her because I wanted to ask her a question, right? So I never met her, but about last summer, I met Gayle King because I had a show and she came to the show. And we had a small conversation. It was about hip hop And I told her, I said, one day I hope to meet Oprah Winfrey. And she said, oh yeah, people say that to me all the time. I said, I'm sure. But I'm going to tell her that I wasn't a fan of certain things that she did when it came to hip hop. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, she invited hip hop artists on her show, on the Oprah Winfrey Show, on many occasions, that did, let's just call it street gangster hip hop, stuff like that. She invited them to be on her show so she can tell them that the music that they were doing was negative and destructive, right? But I would want to talk to her and say, but you never invited positive hip hop. You have the biggest platform on the planet. You still helped that negative hip hop because that's who you invited on your show. You didn't invite Heavy D on the show. You didn't invite me. You didn't invite Kid and Play. You didn't invite Kwame. You didn't invite Dougie Fresh. You didn't invite none of these people. You invited people that you believe, because you're saying that to them, that they are negative to the culture of young people and black people, but never invited us. How does that help? But that goes to your thing. Those artists are going to get way more attention than J. Cole. They just are.
I think that was my original question. Do you think that there is a push by the industry to push certain types of music over? Because you have people like No Name, right? Who, that's a positive woman rapper. Amazing lyricist, right? You have people like Doechii, right? Who is just now
getting her shine.
Right? But for years they would not push her because she didn't fit the mold or she just wasn't talking about what they want us to talk about. I think that's my
Why will they push positivity for our culture?
Exactly.
If you go to Instagram, maybe 50% of it is women wearing nothing. Okay? So they know what they want to push. And it's not, you know, a positive person talking about respect and culture and all of these various things. You know, like, you know what's strange about, think about Megan Thee Stallion. They want to push, when it comes to her sexuality. They never talk about the fact that she graduated college. They never talk about it. Ever. Ever. It's sex. You know?
I was gonna say, there's a lot of like underground rappers that make music, and they don't understand that when they're making their music, you steady rapping about the same thing and not changing your flow or anything. Like, say if you wanted to be a big name rapper, you can't be a big name rapper if you steady saying, oh, I want to kill this person, I want to F that girl, or I want to go with this and do that. And they don't understand it, but if they just think about it, this person ain't made it that way by saying, oh, I want to always do this, I want to kill that person.
No. It's the opposite. Because here's the situation that happens. If you watch 9 out of 10 successful rappers make it by doing those kinds of lyrics, street lyrics, gun, kill, sex, and they make it, and they're making the money. Then you go to a new rapper and say, what's going to be what you're going to talk about? Oh, well, the money is in this. The money isn't in J. Cole and what he does. Now, he has his own set of followers, which is beautiful, but it's not the same as this. So, you have a decision to make on what kind of music. Me, I didn't have that decision to make because there was no in the world I was going to do a record that my mother was not going to be proud of. Or my father's going to say, what is this? Right? So somehow parents got exited out of the equation. And they just think, well, he's making his music. And they're not paying attention. Or they may think, but that's what it is now. Oh, or maybe it's, but he's making money. He's making money. And it's probably all make-believe anyway. He ain't really from the hood anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, he ain't from the hood anyway. And so it just comes down to, hey, if it makes money, just do it. And forget about how it affects young people and their future and yourself. Because you can still be involved with all of that stuff and you're not really from that stuff, and then you get yourself killed because you're not from that stuff. You can't make believe that stuff. You get what I'm saying? So it just keeps on going though. And no one stops, the labels don't stop and say, you know what the labels do now? To my young business people? When they sign a rapper and he's gonna do that kind of music, you know the first thing they do now? They put a life insurance policy on him. I never heard of nothing like that. They put a life insurance policy on him now. It's crazy. And now what they want to do in the business, check this one out. They want to put things in the contract that says, if you die, we can still control and own your social media presence. Because you have a bunch of rappers that have died and you still see them posting. And like, how are they posting? Like, how is this happening? So, as a people, we're in problems on the artistry side. And we got to figure out how do we really fix that.
I think that's hard because, you know, since school days, we've always been yelling for our people to wake up. You know, the 1619 project came out and that shut the system down. I think they amped up once the system was laid out so clearly that we have always been determined as the product and the consumer. And until we break out of that cycle, this is always going to be the conversation. And none of us have the answer except sacrifice. Getting back to the times when there was, I think, pride in, I may not have a lot, but it's mine. Now, we want a lot, even if it belongs to you. And I just think that's the thing that we're battling as a people.
I mean, we're customers. And it seems like we only know how to be customers, right? So when the administration disrespects black women and DEI and all these other kind of nonsense conversations, and all these companies follow him, and then we say, hey, well, don't go to Target, don't spend your money there. And it's like a big deal for you not to spend your money there. Stop spending. You know, one of the healthiest ways to get healthy when you're suffering from problems, believe it or not, is to stop eating. Right? Fasting. And let the body rebuild itself. If you're getting disrespected, stop spending your money with people who disrespect you. We can't do that for some reason. We can't do that for some reason. Like, oh, no. You know, and so we have a lot to do. I hope the one thing that you take away from this today is ways or solutions, even if they don't work, but you're willing to try them, on how we tackle even one part of what we talked about, just one part of it, whatever part that may feel that you would love to tackle of that equation, right? Because it's many equations. But, you know, whatever part that you take away from this is, okay, he talked about publishing. And he talked about, I mean, all kinds of ways, or AI, or how does that interfere with music? And how do we sell music at this point? Is there a different way to sell it? Is there a better way to sell it? How do we know how much has been sold? You know, all of these various different things. The problem that's going on now with young people, and I feel bad for them, is social media has given people the ability to have an opinion. Especially for people like us who we never were allowed to have an opinion. But now you give billions of people an opportunity to have an opinion, but not facts, an opinion. So then you're bombarded with all these opinions, and you don't know if it's true. You have no clue if it's true. And then this person thinks it's true and shares it with friends, so now they think it's true. And then you have this system of, so what do you believe? I'm telling you, I saw these people talking about, it wasn't black people that built the pyramids. And I'm like, oh, so they're going down that road now? And you had people sitting there going, yeah, it probably wasn't. Because you don't know what to believe. You don't have no clue what to believe. And that's a strange system to live in. When there's nothing that's definitive. Can you tell me the definitive answer? You know, and we live in that system now. Because you even have teachers at a young level say 2 plus 2 is what? Oh, let me do it on the paper. It's 3, right? Because I did this and I did this and I showed my work, and the teacher goes, man, this is great that you showed your work and you do. No, you're wrong. The answer is wrong. Because that's what goes on now in some of that young teaching. You tried. Oh my God, oh, let me reward you for just the fact that you took that extra step over here and this and that. But the answer is wrong. And that's the culture we live in now. That's just the culture that we live in. So you guys have beat the odds. You're in college. Take advantage of these older minds, I'm telling you. It ain't just the reading of the chapter and take a test. Take full advantage. Like my man back there, you should end up being the Black Warren Buffett at some point, because you give me that energy there. And keep on going with it. Because it's more than just last night's reading and I'm gonna take a test and go on to something else. You want to learn it all, like all that you can grab from older people, because they have the knowledge of mistakes, and you need that. You know, because I know that's what I wanted. I wanted the knowledge of mistakes. So when my sons come to me now and they say this, and I remember my son said, man, Dad, you know it all. I said, no. I made a bunch of mistakes. I don't want you to make the same mistake. But then he may come back and say, well, wait a second. I may do the same thing you did, but I may do it differently. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. If you're not hurting anybody, go ahead. And then let me know what happens. Because he may come back and say, Dad, I did the same thing, but I went this way. Right before the last part you did. Okay, so you did it different. And you had a different outcome. But if you did it the same way and you had the same outcome as me, then you wasted time. But that's fine. It's your time. Right? It's your time. It ain't my time. It's your time. I told you what happened when I did that. And that's all. That's all. That's what life is about. So while you're in here, man, take advantage of it all, man. That's what I. Because I made that mistake. I was in college, and I was doing well. Music blew up. They offered me some money. I was in college starving. All these white people on the campus with Porsches and all kind of stuff. I was there with a Datsun. Oh yeah, you know.
And older Nissan.
And money was tight. And I'm calling home for money, and then sometime I felt bad calling home for money. And they called me and they said, Chubb, the record is taking off, man. EPMD is going on tour and they want you to come on tour. But I'm at school. For those that seen Just Two of Us video, that was on campus. We shot that video on the campus. So they're like, yeah, but you can make $50,000. $50,000? I had a sardine sandwich last night, right? So I went home for the weekend, and they sent me the offer, and I told my mom and my dad, can I have a family meeting? We used to have family meetings. And it was the two of them, myself and my sister. And I said, hey, you know, the song is doing well, and I'm looking at the floor the whole time I'm talking to them. And I can make some money for this thing, and my mother is just sitting there, and my dad is sitting there, and she says, lift your head up. What is it you want to ask me? I said, can I take a semester off and do this tour? What's the benefits of doing this tour? Well, these are popular guys that are headlining the tour, and it's going to be a lot of people. I get a chance to put my music out there, and they're going to pay me. So my mother laughed at it one time. She was just like, how much money are you going to make? What, a couple of dollars? I'm like, well, the initial offer is $50,000. And she said, $50,000 for the nonsense you're doing? Right? And I'm like, yeah. And she looks at my father and she said, what do you think? And he looks at me and he just says, if I write a piece of paper that says you will go back to school next semester and you sign it, is that what you're going to do? I said, yes, sir. He said, okay. Instead of the paper, what about a handshake? And I said, yes, sir. He said, you know what that means, though? I said, yes, sir. So I left, and I went on the tour, and things changed in the middle of the tour. They added all these dates to this. They added 1 million dates to the show. And we were going to these extra cities, and I'm calling home, and I'm saying, yeah, the booking agent added these 2 cities and these 2 cities and that city and this. She's like, okay. So then, I'll never forget this day. It was a funny day. We did the show, and we're on the tour bus, and the tour bus driver was this real southern, deep accent, cowboy hat white man. And I'll never forget, my mother threatened him when he drove on our block to pick me up, and she said, if anything happens to my baby, I'm going to kill you. So he takes it upon himself, and he comes to me and he says, Chubb, we've been doing a lot of shows, man. I want to ask you a question. I see how you guys do things. I love you guys. You guys are great kids. Have you counted the money? And I said, well, I paid everybody and then I put it in the drop safe because he had a big drop safe in the tour bus. I put everything and I put it in the drop safe. Yeah, but have you counted it? No, not really. He said, okay. Everybody's off the bus. They went to go eat and everything. I want you to count the money. I got something to help you. And then I want you to call your mother and tell her what's going on, what you have or whatever. So I was on the bus, I counted money. I called my mother and I said, Ma, Mr. Banks made me aware of something and he told me to count this money that we've been making. And she said, did you pay everybody? I said, I paid everybody after every show and I put the balance in this drop safe that he has. And I counted the money. And she said, okay, whatever. And I said, he wants me to tell you how much I counted. And she said, why? How much do you have there? You know? $182,000. She dropped the phone, then picked up the phone. Richie, they will kill you for that kind of money going into those towns. Where is he? I gave the phone to him. He picked up the phone. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's why I stopped and told him, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Whatever you need, ma'am. What do you want me to do? Yeah, and he's just going through it. And then she gave me the phone. I will be there in the morning. Yeah. What's the next stop? And I said, the next stop is Tupelo, Mississippi. She was like, Tupelo, Mississippi? Oh. So her and my aunt came up there. They took all the money. They spoke to all the guys. What are you going to do with this money? No, Miss Simpson, take the money, take the money. We'll see you back in Brooklyn. She took the money. They drove back to Brooklyn. I said, yo, Mom, if a cop stops you in Mississippi, 2 black women with 100-something thousand, you're going to jail. We'll be fine, right? So when we got off the tour, my father had a conversation with me and he was like, listen, you're grown now, you're making real money. What do you want to do about school? And I said, well, school ain't going nowhere. But am I going to school to graduate to make money that I got now? You know, I told him every excuse in the book. And he said, you don't go to school just to make money. And I said, I know, but I got money. I can go buy a house now. I can do this. I can do that. Don't make that mistake. I made that mistake.
We can correct it.
Yeah. Because one tour turned into another tour, and then another tour turned into another tour, and you kind of get caught. And that's what happened to almost all of my contemporaries. We were all in school. We were all in school. Kid from Kinplay, he was in school. Everybody was in school. Heavy was in school. Everybody was in school. And then and we would talk about it. Why'd you leave school? Oh, it was the New Edition tour. Oh, I left because of the such and such tour. Oh, I left because of the Budweiser Superfest. They all got the same story. You know, we didn't have much, and now you got a chance to make money. And we all left, you know, and I would tell my sons, like, I don't want you to tell you to finish school and I didn't finish. Like my daughter is a doctor now, right? But she went all the way because I said, don't do what I did, right? But my son, he wanted to leave school And I said, don't do what I did, man. Nah, Dad, I'm only going to do it for a semester, man. I got a chance to work with my friend, and we're going to do this. And I said, don't do this, man. I went through this. Okay, for the money thing. I went through this. Just finish school. Trust me, it's something that you would have forever, right? And have more knowledge of how to spend this money you're trying to make, right? So that's pretty much the main thing I try to tell students, because they may say, hey, but look at all the money. And I get it. But you learn more here than just the curriculum, right? It's everything. How to deliver on a deadline. And there's a lot of other things to learn in school, not just how to make money. So that's my spiel.
Thank you. Chubb Rocky, everybody. We want to thank you so much for being here this evening, for sharing with us in our Presidential Colloquium series. We appreciate you so much, and look forward to even more conversations with you in the future. So appreciate you. Thank y'all so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate you all and look forward to the next one coming up. Just be on the lookout. All right. With that being said, good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks
right.
for all the young people that took the time to listen to